Lewis House describes our next speaker as a customer retention beast, and we can't think of a better way to describe someone who regularly gets a 200 to 500% ROI on his consulting services. You might have seen him featured in the New York Times, Forbes, or Fast Company magazine. Let's hear it for Noah Fleming.
Hey guys. So I gotta apologize in advance. Do I have a clicker? Here it is. I have to apologize in advance because I'm a Canadian. We got other Canadians here? You know, I met someone last night and I said I'm from Canada. And she said, oh, so then you must know Stu. And it turns out that I knew the exact Stu she was talking about. Anybody else know Stu McLaren? Yeah, a few hands going up. So this is why they leave, the 5 core reasons your customers leave, and what you can do to stop them from leaving. And I want to start by asking you a question here. If you had a choice of these 2 things, which would you choose? The first one is to have your home paid for in full. Wherever you live, your condo, your house, your apartment, you own it, cash-free, mortgage-free. Or you've got between $500 and $1 million in the bank in the next 12 to 15 months. You've got like Pat Flynn money in your bank account. Who would choose the mortgage? Who would choose to have their house paid for? Anybody? A few hands. Who would choose the money in the bank? A few more hands. Who would choose both? So there's a really interesting story that I want to share with you, which brings me to where I am today. I started online doing things on the internet back in 1999 and 2000 when a lot of people weren't really doing anything there. I was selling products on eBay and info products throughout my days in college and university. So my friends would go to their jobs as servers and bartenders, and I would wake up in the morning with a bank account full of money from PayPal. But when I got to the end of university, I thought, now I need to enter the real world, right? This isn't the real world, so I need to give that up. I was just getting married, and so I said, I'm going to look for a job now. I'm done with this internet stuff. It took me 1.5 years to find a job. 1.5 years. And I got a job that paid me something like $23,000 a year. So I was recently married, and I was incredibly depressed with this situation. So I drove to work my very first day, and they escorted me to this office. It was a purple room. There was no window. I had this big clunky computer, and they had me start doing, this ridiculous work. And I went home the very first day, and I told my wife that I'm quitting my job. 1 day into my newfound career, right? The world is your oyster. You've graduated from university, you've got your degree, you finally find a job, and the first day you say, I'm quitting my job. My wife is not good with, excuse me, she's not good with risk. And so she said, here's the deal. You've got to make at least what you're making in your job, or more, for 6 months, and then I'll support you with whatever you do, whatever you decide to do. So the second day I went to work, and the moment my boss left the office, I started building. And so this is in 2004, 2005. I started building. So, the idea of lead pages and opt-in pages, it wasn't too big then, but I set up a really simple opt-in page, and I started driving traffic to it with Google AdWords. Again, it was kind of the Wild West then. You could just spend this money, drive traffic, and I would get these opt-ins, and then I had 5 simple emails, and at the end of that email, I sold a product. And so I went back to this idea of selling online. And that started to do really well. I can trace my entire career up until this point from $7,000 that I spent that year in Google AdWords to drive traffic. So I had this money coming in, I was doing well, and then I said to my wife, I'm going to launch a site where people are going to pay me $30 a month, and I'm going to support them. I'm going to help them with their business, I'm going to help them with their sales, help them with their marketing. She said, nobody's going to pay you for that. I said, well, let's see what happens. I've been working really hard to build a relationship with my readers, the people that were buying my stuff. So I sent out one email, and I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a membership site. It's going to be $30 a month, and I'm only going to accept 300 people. Who wants in? That email went out to about 1,500 people. I think I got 600 emails back that said, I'm in. So then I said, honey, look at this. These people are willing to pay for this. So the next day I sent another email and I said, okay, here's the deal. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. Sign up today, secure your spot. I'm only taking 300 of you. I sold out my first subscription site before I had built a single page, before I had even thought about what I was going to give these people. But they trusted me, and they invested in it. And so when I asked you this question earlier, you know, I came from this spot where I had this new job, and I was unhappy. Well, I paid off my mortgage in 2 years. So I went from essentially hating my job to having this letter from my mortgage company that says, effective on this date, your mortgage is paid in full. And the reason that I keep this letter is because I left that business too. And now I consult with businesses, small, medium-sized businesses with revenues from $2 million a year to over $1 billion a year. My biggest client has 17,000 employees. And the most fascinating thing that I do is that I consult with these companies doing the exact same things that I was doing with my membership site. So when I had 300 people say, yes, we're willing to pay you for this, yes, we want to join this site, when I had that, you know, $9,000 a month of revenue coming in, I said to myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep these people. And so I started to learn a lot about retention and how you keep a customer happy, why they leave, what we can do to bring them back. And so all the work that I've done now is still in that same realm. So here's a few more questions. As internet marketers, as solo entrepreneurs, as professionals, a lot of you are running these types of businesses. You know, does anybody ever have the feeling that it's unsustainable, right? Or when or where the next customer is going to come from? Anybody ever have those feelings? Yeah, a few people, right? Or the thing you're doing now might not really be a thing to be doing, you know, in 2 years, right? You might be developing products, but like, you know, are those products still going to be around in 2 years? Are they still going to be relevant? Are you going to have to come up with the next big thing? So these are questions I was having. The next question I was having, you know, is it sustainable? Can I keep doing this? What do I give these people each month to keep them coming back? And then I started to hear things like, the average member only stays a member for 3 months. They only pay for 3 months. Has anybody else heard that? Yeah, there's a lot of nodding heads. I once heard Frank Kern say, you know, who is they, right? Who's this magical they that decided the average member only stays 3 months? I can tell you that unequivocally, that's not true. It's not true at all. If you do the right things, if you know why your members leave, if you know what you can do to engage them and to keep them happy and to keep delivering, but more importantly, if you know why they leave in the first place, then you can address these objections very early. So now when I go into a business, you know, I've been telling some other people here, like, I work with clients that make conveyor belts, or they make, you know, gas compressors, right? And they're asking these questions, and when we ask them, well, why doesn't a customer buy from you again? Why do they not keep doing business with you? We often get answers like, well, maybe we don't offer enough value, right? Maybe we just don't give enough value in what we do. Again, if you're in business already, if you have a customer, if you're already doing well, you have some people that get value from what you're doing, then this conventional wisdom is incorrect. The next thing we hear, especially in the online world, is not enough stuff. We need to give them more. We need more stuff, more goods, more materials, more things. I believed this for a long time when I had my membership site, that I needed to keep giving them stuff, to keep creating stuff, to keep building stuff. But what happens is you create what I call the messy closet theory. And the messy closet theory is, if you think about a messy closet, there's lots of clothes on the ground, there's stuff everywhere, and you're looking for a belt that matches your shoes. But you can't find it because it's lost in this closet. And so what happens is you get overwhelmed, you get anxiety about it, and eventually you just pick everything up and you throw it away. And so that's why if you're a SaaS provider or a subscription site, if I log into your site and the onboarding process requires me to watch 67, 9-minute videos just to learn how to use the product, you're putting me into a messy closet. But we see this all the time. Google is the classic example of saying, let's make it as clean and as simple as possible. And we need to be thinking about this, about how do we reduce the stuff and reduce the anxiety. So this conventional wisdom is wrong. You can actually give less stuff and offer far more value. And again, quite in line with too expensive, not good enough, very similar to not enough value. But that's not true. Again, if you have customers that pay you, they enjoy what you do, it's absolutely not true. Now, I used to charge $30 a month for a consulting, for my membership site. Now I do consulting projects where the fees can range anywhere from $30,000 to $85,000. So the idea of, too expensive is not really true. In fact, my mentor would tell me that there's no such thing as not enough money. The only thing that you've done wrong is you have not created the right perception of value. And the perception of value is in the eye of the beholder. It's in the eye of the consumer. It's not what we say it is. So the conventional wisdom is wrong. So we'll get to the real reasons in a minute. We heard Derek talk about customer types, and I've got my own customer types here, which I think are important. If you think about the things we've been learning here, LeadPages is all about your leads, right? So our first group is your prospects. Well, this is something I've been saying for a while that seems to bother a lot of people, but a lead is worthless. A lead has no inherent value whatsoever, 0, unless you can take them to the next step, which is that conversion component, right? So taking a lead to the next step to become a customer. If you want leads, you can open the phone book, or you can bring out your phone, and you can look on the yellow pages, and you can find lots of leads. Right? So we all want more leads, but we have to be able to get them to the next step. So now you have new customers. Now the biggest problem we have in most organizations, most businesses, and we've heard this a lot during the time we've been here, is that once we have a new customer, we now go back to getting more leads. And the new customer is kind of left to do their thing. And yeah, some of us, we're getting better at onboarding. We have, some customer success teams, but for the most part, the lead stuff, the traffic stuff, the conversion stuff, that's the really fun, sexy stuff, and that's where we want to focus. But we're missing the boat. Now this is an interesting one because I believe after you have a new customer that's converted, you now have a defecting customer. So here's what I mean. Once a customer converts with you and decides to pay you and do business with you, they're already in a mode of defecting, which means they're not actively looking, but they're thinking about what is the next step. Where are we going with this? And it's up to us to keep them now, to keep the life cycle going. So customers right away are defecting. We have to be engaging, we have to stay top of mind, and we have to be there, and we'll talk about those in a minute. And then you have alarm customers. I love the scenes in the Mission Impossible movies where Tom Cruise swoops down and he's hanging over the laser beams. Alarm customers are customers that show you through their behaviors that they're getting ready to leave. They're actively getting ready to leave. Now, if you run a subscription site or a SaaS model, it's very simple to know when a customer has gone. But for the rest of us, it's very hard. So we need to be looking at things like participation in our websites, participation in our communities, how engaged they are, how many emails they're opening. And of course, as Derek talked about earlier, the communication that we deliver to each group of these customers has to be different. We all know this, but we have to keep saying this, right? Because we still all fall into this trap that we can deliver these people the same content, the same material, but we can't treat them the same. The next group is a group that's near and dear to my heart, which are evergreen customers. So my first book came out in 2015. It was called Evergreen. Seth Godin gave the book a raving endorsement. And an evergreen customer is just like the tree. An evergreen tree is lush, it's lively, it's green year-round. An evergreen tree, an evergreen business can thrive in any economic condition. It can thrive in any environmental condition. Evergreen customers, they refer you. They continue to do business with you over and over again. They tell others about you. They offer testimonials. They give you case studies. These are the types of customers that we want to be trying to create. So we've got defective customers, we've got alarm customers, and then we've got lost customers. And this is an interesting one because a lot of us don't really think about this. Again, unless if you're in a subscription model or a SaaS model, it's very easy to know when the customer is lost. They were supposed to pay you on August 25th. It's now September 3rd. They're no longer there. Maybe there's been a blip in the credit card. But for the most part, this is a lost customer. Now, when I do work with B2B manufacturers where, we go through their customer files, we find loads of this stuff, loads of lost customers. And there's very simple processes that we can use to bring those customers back. Amanda Holmes, who talked yesterday, her father's book, Ultimate Sales Machine, thank you very much. Fantastic book, and I've read that book, year over year. Chet Holmes, many years ago, talked about the process of having a reactivation process to bring back lost customers. So many of us aren't thinking in this way. We're not thinking about what sort of process we need for new customers, what sort of process we need to develop referrals, to gain testimonials, to get customers to buy again, what kind of process we need for lost customers. So again, I said this is a tough question to answer. How do you know when a customer is lost in your business? It's a hard question to answer because it's different for everybody. So think about a restaurant, for example. Would anybody have a guess of when a customer is no longer a customer for a restaurant? Anybody? Right. The answer was they never come back. That's one good way to know. For many of my clients, I would say it's about 30 days. And that's because I've done a lot of work with them, and we start to see this, that if you have a favorite restaurant in your town, you are typically a customer if you come back every 30 days. But if you don't, you're no longer a customer. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that the communication, again, has to be different, it has to change, and we're not doing a great job of this. You need to think about when a customer is lost for your business and what you can do about it. I'm a firm believer that a customer is only a customer up until their last transaction with you or their last engagement with you. So let's get into the 5 core reasons that you lose customers. Now, you might say there's 6, you might say there's 3, you might say there's more. I believe there's 5 simple reasons. I've had a lot of experience with this, and I haven't seen many more. These are the key ones we see often. The first one is you screwed up. You did something wrong. One of your employees gave bad service to one of your customers. Somebody did something wrong. You said something that went against their values. You talked about your support for Donald Trump, and that turned a lot of people off. You screwed up. This is a big one. What's interesting about this is that this doesn't happen as often as we think. Because for the most part, most of us are trying to deliver great service to our customers. We're trying to do a good job. We're not trying to screw up. So this is a fairly uncommon cause of why customers leave. It's good to know that this is a reason, and it's good to know how to handle that. So even though I'm a customer loyalty guy and I write books on this process and I talk about this and I consult with this, I am not from the camp that we need to bend over backwards for every single customer complaint. I'm not of that camp. I believe that there are customers that need to be shown the door, and we need to be willing to show those customers the door. But it's most important to know if you screwed up and how to handle that. So that's the first reason, pretty uncommon. The second reason is that you solved their problem. This is an interesting one, especially for those of us that build products. If we deliver on the outcome that we've promised, then for a lot of us, we should be solving their problem, right? If we sell weight loss products and we help the person lose the weight, then technically they shouldn't need our products anymore. If we sell products to help them quit smoking and we help them quit smoking, then technically they shouldn't need us anymore. This, again, is a fairly uncommon cause of attrition, but it's one of the reasons why we lose customers. There's only one simple solution that you can do here, and that's to develop ancillary products to take people to the next step, right? So you see LeadPages is doing a fantastic job of this now with things like Drip and things like Center, and the way they've talked about the conversion marketing lifecycle. They're starting to build products around that to say, okay, you know what, we can help you get leads. But if that's all they do, you know, they're kind of doing us a disservice. So now they need to help us go to the next level. And it's the same for you in your products and the same for you in your services. If you deliver the expected outcome that you promise, there should be a point where their customer doesn't need you anymore. You should be forcing them to stop doing business with you. And so it's up to us to figure out the next step. The next one is natural attrition. And this one is people die, right? People move on. They move. They pick up and go somewhere else. Their interests change. So I was into yoga for 6 months. I really liked what you did. I thought about really getting engaged with it. I enjoyed your products. I enjoyed your services. But I realized, you know, I'm not really that good at yoga. I went through this with tying fly fishing flies, right? I loved it. And so I was devouring everything. I was buying everything, anything I could get my hands on. And then I just realized that my fingers were too fat and I wasn't good at it. So there's natural attrition. Again, a very uncommon cause of attrition. The fourth reason is that they fall out of habit with you. Now this is an interesting one. They fall out of habit with you. So this picture here, this reminds me of my first day of high school. Whenever you're coming up to high school, the lesson you learn your whole life is there's peer pressure coming, right? People are going to peer pressure you to smoke. You're going to have these pressures. And I always told my parents, no, I'll be fine. We're good. I understand. So the first day of school, I get dropped off with my best friend, Corey. And outside, there's a guy with his guitar, and he's got a cigarette in his mouth, and he looks like this guy in my high school. He's got a big beard. And we go to drama class, and there he is. And his name's Dan Tiller. And Dan, you know, he's in grade 12, but he's in a grade 9 class. He's just that guy. I was smoking an hour into school. First break, I was out there, you know, just giving her. They fall out of habit with us. It's up to us to create the habits of using, the habits of taking advantage of the products and services that they've paid for. There's something really interesting that I've heard from people here this week is that I've heard from more than one person that I've been paying for LeadPages for 8 months, 12 months, and I don't use it. I don't use it, but I pay for it. So why do you pay for it? And they say the same thing each time because they keep getting in touch with me and they keep wanting me to use it and they keep pushing me to use it. We have to be the pushers, okay? So we need to be pushing people to use, to consume, to take part, to get the value that we want them to get. That whole idea of the 3-month attrition rate, it comes from people that don't do this. And it comes from people that just allow the customers to come in, to go on their merry way, and then we hope they don't cancel. We hope they don't find out how to cancel their subscription or how to find out how to get support or how to find out how to leave. And so that's what happens. They fall out of habit with you. This is why very early on in the marketing world and the sales world, when they used to sell late-night infomercials, they would always have a stick letter. And the purpose of the stick letter was to, one, reaffirm your purchase and to tell you you made a great decision, but then it was to get you using the product right away. They wanted to get you consuming, they wanted to get you to take action with it, they wanted you to use it. Because they know that if you buy the Ab Coaster 6000 at 3 in the morning and it comes and it sits there and you don't use it, it's never getting used. And my mother is terrible for these things. She's got tons of them. This is probably the most common cause of attrition. We're not top of mind. We're not getting in touch with them. We're just letting them go on their merry way, and we can't do that. Now this is my favorite reason for people like us, entrepreneurs, people that have personal brands, people that are working to develop themselves. They have no connection to you. I believe loyalty is just a feeling, and that feeling is about connection. It's about my customers, my prospective customers being connected to me, and them feeling that I have this connection to them. And when they become a customer, I really do have a connection to them. But until then, we're going to work on the other part. great marketers in this space, Frank Kern calls this idea of mass control. Dan Kennedy talks about it as personality and copy. I talk about it as a concept that I call character. And I write about this in Evergreen because I believe it's a concept that any business of any type can embrace. This way that we build connection with people from before the sale, the way that we build the feeling that they have about us, the marketing that we do with them, the trust building. So let me share one specific example from my business. I write an email every week that I call the Tuesday Tidbit. And again, I've already told you that my market is quite a bit different than the people that are in this room. The people that I serve are, they're manufacturers, they're older, and so they read this email every week. And every week I tell them a story, and every week I tell them something about me, and every week I give them some value, and every week I give them a challenge and something they can go out and do. And it's email, right? They're not going to be logging into my chat bot tomorrow. I know this for a fact. They're going to like the emails, and that's what works for them. Now, I said this at a conference once, and people wrote back and they said, they complained to the organizer and said, who's that guy think he is, saying this, he doesn't know more than we do. We're agency marketing experts. He doesn't know. But what I said was that if my email doesn't arrive by 10 a.m. on Tuesday, those people start emailing me and saying, Noah, is everything okay? Noah, did my email get changed? Did I accidentally get unsubscribed? And this is how I know that the connection is there, that they want to hear from me each and every week. They're waiting for me to show up in their inbox and market to them and to build trust with them. One of my clients this year, he read those emails for 2 years. 2 years, never heard from the guy. Tried to get in touch with him, wouldn't return my calls. Tried to email him personally, wouldn't return my calls. But every week I saw that he was opening this email. Once in a while, he would write something back about the challenge, but for the most part, it goes on like that. Finally, after 2 years, I get an email one day that says, okay, Noah, I think we should talk. I said, okay. So I flew down to his place, and I closed a $76,000 consulting project with this guy. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am happy to let any prospective customer read my emails for 18, 24 months, and then write me a check for $76,000. Would anybody else like to do that? So it's a slow process sometimes, but sometimes we have to slow down that process. This is all about conversion, right? And getting people through those doors. But sometimes we have to slow down and we have to build that connection. So if you get customers in, because you're so good at conversion, you're so persuasive, you've got the right techniques, you know the tactics, you know Cialdini's laws of influence, and you get them there and you get them in the door, but you haven't done some of this early stage prep work that you need to be doing to set the foundation, you're not going to keep them. So let's just recap the 5 core reasons quick. The first one, as I said, is you screwed up, right? You made a mistake. This happens far less than we think. The best thing you can do is know how to handle it when that happens. Know that some customers just genuinely want to complain. Know that some customers just genuinely want you to give them a discount or something for free. But then also know that there are legitimate and valid complaints that need to be addressed. So a very quick example of this is, if I book a $1,200 hotel room in New York City for one night, and I find hair in my bathtub, that is a valid complaint. Would everybody agree? But if I book a $250 hotel room, and I stay in Times Square, and then I send a complaint or write a review that the room was loud and it was bright and there was people up all night, and it's an invalid complaint. And so this is important to know how to distinguish what's valid and what's invalid, and then know how to address it. So the second one, you solve their problem, right? The only thing you could do here is continue to expand and say, what's the next product that we should be delivering? What's the next thing that we need to give them? I've heard a few people mention some of the great copywriters and marketing books that were written, 80 years ago. And these guys all said, oh, if you want the perfect niche is help people make more money, help them lose weight, help them get more sex, and golf, right? I don't know why golf is always in there, but golf's always in there. The problem is you should help them solve their problem. And so you need to be thinking about what is the next step. The third reason is, again, natural attrition. I say they died, but it doesn't really happen that often. I only ever had one customer die, but they do move. In traditional businesses where you have sales teams or you have key accounts at other companies, it's important to know and important to have other contacts within those companies because sometimes people move. And so it's important to know how to handle that. They followed a habit with you. Again, I said this is probably the most common cause. It's that we're not pushing people enough to get in there, to use what we're giving, to show them the value that we know we can give them, to help them get those outcomes, to help them get those results that they want. And finally, they have no connection to you. Again, I believe you have to slow down, you have to build trust, and there's a lot that you have to do early on before you get to the conversion point. So that's why this slide is really quite simple, which is how to bring them back. If you know the 5 reasons and you want to know how to bring them back, there's only one thing you can actually do to bring them back in any of these cases, and that's to reestablish communication and to figure out why they left in the first place. And what happens is, as marketers, we don't do this. If they leave, if they don't pay, we go straight for the jugular, which is we go straight for the sale. We give them the next offer. We give them the next pitch. We give them the next product. We give them the next launch. Instead of actually addressing why they left in the first place. Was there a problem we didn't address? Did something change? You know, perhaps they lost their job and they can no longer afford what they were paying you. Perhaps they did move to another company, in which case, perhaps there's a new opportunity now at their new company. Perhaps there's somebody they can introduce you to at the past company. You see, these are the things we need to know as business owners, why they left and what we can do. So let me just show you one more thing here. This is my next book that comes out next month, and it comes out on November 21st. You know, Amanda Holmes said, she said, "What's your pitch, right? What's your call to action?" I said, I don't have a call to action. She said, "Really, what's your call to action?" I said, I honestly don't have one. But I did set up a chat bot. So if you want to talk to the robot me, you can go to noahfleming.com/converted. It is pretty cool. And I will be talking about this, and I've got a free gift there for you if you become my Facebook Messenger robot friend. This is the customer loyalty loop. So yesterday, we were introduced from Clay about the conversion marketing lifecycle. This is how I look at it. I looked at the work I've done over the past few years with my clients, and I looked at the different steps we're talking about, right? Throughout that exact same conversion marketing lifecycle, from a lead to a prospect to a customer to a past customer to a repeat customer. And the loyalty loop is really simple. And I say there's 4 simple stages, and then in each one of those stages, there are different tactics, there are different strategies, and there are different tools that we can be using to help keep customers coming back again and again and again. So stage 1 is imagination before persuasion. Amanda also talked about the concept of core stories. I talked about the process of building trust over a long period of time. The wonderful Jay Abraham talks about the concept of preemptive marketing. This is all about creating the imagination of what's to come before they actually become a customer with you. So we think about our lead pages, we think about the content we're delivering to get them to give us that email. This is all about setting that stage. And there's certain things that you can be doing in there to make sure that you move them through. The second stage is something I call conversion without coercion. And so I talked about Cialdini for a minute there. I said many of us know these tactics. We know the great laws of persuasion. We know these things. You know, Dr. Cialdini, I've spent time with him. He says in his book, you can use these tactics for evil. You can build a cult with these tactics. And as marketers, and what we've been able to do, we've gotten really good at creating the conversion. The problem with the tactics of somebody like Cialdini is they'll help us get the first sale. They might not get us the 4th or the 5th. And so before we make that conversion, there's still more work we need to do. We need to reduce the resistance. We need to reduce any friction. We need to tackle all the objectives early. This is, you know, it's stuff you guys already know, but putting it into a framework that's easy for us to understand and incredibly important. So this is stage 2. Now stage 3 is we've got a customer, and I call this experience choreography. Now, I'm not suggesting that we choreograph every step of what a customer looks like once they become a customer, but what I am suggesting is that the majority of organizations and companies that I talk to, they're not even thinking about this, right? Again, they've got their customer success team, they've got their onboarding people, but they're not really thinking about what that flow looks like to keep the customer happy. So in the book, I give a number of examples of places where this is important in offline businesses, online businesses. But the science of this, what a lot of us know is that the key moments are really how the experience starts and how the experience ends. Right? That's what the science tells us. That's what people remember. That's the most impactful thing. So the way that experience starts once they actually sign on the dotted line, once they actually become a customer, is so darn important. And too many of us are dropping the ball there. So we need to think about, how does the experience start? And then what they tell us is that people usually forget what happens after the fact. And so you need to create what I call remarkable moments. And these are the moments inside the experience that people want to go home and talk about. So many of you have probably stayed at a hotel with a house car. Anybody stayed at a hotel with a house car? You know what I'm talking about? No? Yes? Some of you? So the St. Regis in San Francisco, you stay at the St. Regis, there's a Bentley outside, and they say, that's the house car, and if you need a ride in the Bentley, we'll happily take you in the Bentley. This is remarkable for a lot of people that aren't used to staying at a hotel like that, because they don't go home and talk about staying at the St. Regis and the beds are all fluffy, but what they do talk about is that there was a Bentley outside, right? There was a Bentley that I could use as a customer. This happens on cruise ships as well, right? Cruise ships often offer a butler. And again, everybody wants to go home and talk about the butler, that they could ring the bell, and the butler came on their cruise ship and did these really remarkable and interesting things for them. So I'm giving you examples outside of the space that we're typically in, but I'm urging you to think about what moments you could create inside the experience that are remarkable, that are fascinating, that people want to talk about. So that's experience choreography. And then the last stage is the stage that's near and dear to my heart, which is happily ever after. As I said to you before, a lead is inherently worthless unless we can take them through that process, right? This isn't Glengarry, Glen Ross, and the Glengarry leads. It's important to know that once you have a lead, you need to move it through. And you want to take them to this point of happily ever after, where they want to continue to do business with you. They want to remain a customer even if they're not using your product, right? Even if they're paying for LeadPages and they know they're not using it, but they show up and they just say, wow, these people really love me, they take care of me, they want me to use it, they want me to consume it, I'll get to it someday, I still want to be a customer, so you know what, I'm going to stick around here. That's exactly the type of customer that you want. And of course you want to get them using, but you want them that engaged, that happy, that excited about what you're doing. So again, it's 4 simple stages. What I would suggest for you to do is think about those stages in your business. Think about that stage before we have a lead. Are we attracting the right people? How are we bringing them in? What are we saying to them? Once we get them there, how are we converting them to the next step? Are we reducing all the objections, all the friction, all the resistance very early on? Because if we don't, we're going to have problems down the road. Like I said, you may get the first sale, but you're probably not going to get the 4th. And then once you've got them in there, how are you thinking about the experience? What can you do that's remarkable, that's something they want to talk about, that's something that engages them so much that they're willing to pay, they're willing to stick it out, they're willing to brush off any small mistakes, right? That was something I learned very early on that I found really important, is that loyal customers brush off small mistakes, small errors, small blips as an anomaly. That's another way to test, is when you do something that's not really, up to par with what you usually do, but they just say, hey, you know what, it's fine, right? You'll pick it up next time. That's a true test that you have a loyal customer, somebody that's willing to say, you know what, I'm still willing to stick with you. So think about that, and then you have the experience choreography and happily ever after. Bring them through, keep them there, keep them engaged, and think about your business and what processes and tools that you need in each stage here to really move them through that customer life cycle. So again, I was serious about my chatbot. I actually did set it up, and I tried to set it up in a way that it would actually talk with you while I was up here. I couldn't figure that part out in terms of the scheduling. But here's the deal. Sign up for that. you can go there. I've got a $97 gift for you, and the gift is the Volume 1 collection of those Tuesday tidbits I talk about. I give you those because I think they can be an important tool to see how I talk to my audience on a regular basis. I'm not pitching them. I'm not selling them. I'm simply moving them along in a way that makes sense with my business. Everybody's sales process is going to be different, right? Everybody's going to move them through at their own pace. But this is a good example about how I work with my customers and bring them through. And so it might take 2 years for me to get to the conversion point, but I'm perfectly fine with that. So with that said, I know we were running a little bit late. I think I'm going to end here, end on time. And thank you very much. I hope you all enjoy the debate tonight.